Hey everyone, Jana here, and today I'd like to throw you a little challenge that I feel has the potential to make the PvP community a little less toxic and hopefully a little bit friendlier all around. With the escalation of complaints about PvP mounting as the season approaches its end, and with the season's community challenge getting kicked off, I believe this is the perfect opportunity for the PvP community as a whole to come together and challenge itself to be and do better. Whether players are complaining about Lord of Wolves, Erentil, handheld supernova, snipers, hunters, and why warlocks aren't nerfed to the ground more often because, well, we need even more hunters in the Crucible, the end result tends to be the same every single time. Players going after each other in and out of the game. And I think it's time we started dealing with each other a bit differently. These community challenges Bungie puts together are a way for the community to come together and work towards a unique goal. While I can appreciate them for what they are, I can't help but feel like they are a bit of a missed opportunity when it comes to building a good rapport between members of the community, and especially in the Crucible. Reaching various random numerical goals throughout the month by doing random stuff in the game, which doesn't require anyone to directly engage with one another, won't do much to change that. There's so much wrong going around in the PvP community, so much mistreatment and disrespect, that no amount of nerfs, buffs, and sandbox updates will ever be enough to solve them, no matter how much players think it will. Just look at the amount of buffs and nerfs the game has gone through, and alas, toxicity is alive and well. Because Destiny mixes the power fantasy of an MMORPG with asymmetrical characters to choose from and hundreds of customizable pieces of gear with the bones of a skill-based shooter, balance can't and shouldn't ever be achieved. Not to mention that Bungie doesn't seem interested in that. The moment you nerf a few items, others will take their place as the most dominant ones. So this cycle continues on until players quit in frustration due to all the toxicity, or the fun is nerfed out of the game. Since none of these options are desirable, I think it's important to understand what we might be able to do to mitigate them. From the two, the only one we can have a lot of control over is levels of frustration and toxicity, because I don't believe that Bungie will nerf the fun out of the game, and will keep ushering in new metas with buffs and nerfs. Even though I feel that the PvP community building potential is lacking in these events, I do think they are a great opportunity for us to reflect on how we can be and do better in and out of the game to help create a better and healthier community environment. With how much sandbox changes fail in the mid to long term in creating a healthier environment amongst the PvP crowd, we have to rely on how we deal with each other as the backbone of a healthy PvP community. As we go into a new season with trials on the way, I think this is the perfect time for us to really come together, to rethink how we engage with one another and start creating a supportive and friendlier environment all around. Something that really helps foster a sense of community, a true appreciation for the game and mode a lot of us love the most. With this in mind, I would like to challenge everyone in the community with the first ever PvP community challenge. The idea here is simple. After every match you have in the Crucible until the end of this season, pick one of your teammates and one of your opponents and message them after the match. The message should be positive and highlight something cool you notice them doing. This way, you're not making stuff up and are in fact being honest about that player's performance while still being positive. I've been doing this for a few days and all these interactions were positive and for the most part, really cool. Interestingly enough, I've been finding that this is an awesome way to exorcise my own PvP demons. Most of the players I've been messaging on the opposite team are the ones who either win a lot of 1v1s against me or use strats or weapons that tend to aggravate me at times, like for example, I don't know, snipers. Writing positive messages to these nemesis of mine, messages that focus on great things I saw them doing, allowed me to see a bit of the real person behind the avatar. They were cordial and nice to the point of sending me friend requests, clan invites, and asking me to join them so we could play together. And just like that, my hate for a given weapon and strat diminished, making me feel rather silly in the process. This has also exposed me to another side of the player base that's important to take in consideration. Players who are working hard on improving. One of these nemesis I contacted was this one sniper that got me a lot of times with some really impressive shots. By reaching out to him and praising his sniper skills, I found out he's actually been working on them heavily and he seemed happy to know that his work was paying off, to the point where another player messaged him to tell him how impressed he was. So, by reaching out to other players who are trying to improve and commenting on their skills, you can, unknowingly, motivate them to keep progressing, or at the very least, make them feel great for all the hard work they have been putting into the game, which I think is pretty damn cool. There's potential for these interactions to backfire, of course. This is why I wouldn't advise you to message players who you see constantly teabagging or emoting on other players as ghosts, as they might not be the best to send a message to, even a positive one, as they might turn it on its head and make it a very toxic exchange. Mind you that this doesn't mean that these players might be bad or toxic just because you see them emoting or teabagging. I've experienced fun conversations with players I traded emotes and teabags with during matches. I'm just throwing it out there as a tool for you to gauge who you should or should not message. Another thing to take in consideration before messaging someone is how your interaction with that player was during a match. If you were too dominant over him, it's probably not a good idea to send a message because it might be perceived as a passive-aggressive move. I had this one match against a team of 4 guys in lockdown where I contacted the top fragger after the match to congratulate their work as a team. We ended up matchmaking again, and before we went in for the second match, I messaged him again. Due to the nature of what I wrote, the fact that we ended up dominating that second match completely and that he never replied to my second message, I decided to not message him again, nor any of his teammates. So if you decide to give this challenge a go, be mindful of your opponents when you message them, so the ones you interact with might be in the best headspace to really get something out of your message. If you decide to give this challenge a go, be sure to share some of the messages you receive with me and the community. I created posts about this on Reddit and Bungie.net that I'll link to in the description below that you can use to share your experiences. As for Twitter, use the hashtag D2PvPChallenge to share your thoughts and the messages you were sent. You don't need to use any of these, but it's just a way to keep everything organized and under one single place, so it's easier to check everything out and see all the coolness being thrown around. I was inspired to come up with this challenge because of 2 things: various positive interactions I had with random players in 3v3 survival, and a Twitter post by a cool guy. Because of how much comp I've been playing over the last few seasons, I've been having interactions with a lot of players post-match, whether from my team or opponents, regardless if I win or lose. Except for one, every single one of them has been a positive one. These conversations made me enjoy my time in the game even more, and I got to know cool players, even if for a very brief moment. The only exception to this rule was Jedi Brew. I stumbled upon Jedi one night in comp during Season of the Undying. We played in the same team and we ended up winning. After the match, he messaged me and we had a cool back and forth. Surprisingly enough, that wouldn't be the last time we'd meet. In Season of Dawn, we ended up crossing paths again, but this time the game pit us against each other. My team won. It was a really close match and he was giving me a lot of headaches with his sniping and Icarus dashing. After the match we talked once more and became PlayStation friends. As for Cool Guy's Twitter post, it resonated with me because of his remark, "Do better." Although I try to have a healthy approach to how I interact with other players in the Crucible, and I try to be as positive as possible, I too have fallen prey to toxic behavior over the last few months. Whether I'm being snide to other players who send me toxic messages, or teabagging and dancing over players who teabag me first for whatever reason. I've learned through these interactions that this accomplishes nothing. I don't feel better afterwards, and it takes away from my experience. It's just a whole lot of nothing being achieved and a lot of toxicity being thrown around. So yeah, I need to do better. Toxicity will always be a part of any PvP game or mode. I feel like it's inevitable because of the nature of competitive activities. But feeding it will just make everything worse and increase levels of frustration within the community and in regards to the game. A friendly word will go a long way in reducing toxicity and building a way more positive environment. I know that this type of thing won't be for everyone, and that many won't see the value in it. But at the end of the day, if you really want to make Crucible a better place, this is one of the only things you can do that's going to have an immediate positive impact on the community that might have some staying power. Give it a go and see how you feel about it.